Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremiah Dalton, and welcome back to the Long Island Legends podcast, the only podcast here on Long Island dedicated to showcasing the most legendary talent in our community. And today, I'm joined by Michael Steinberg. He's the CEO of Hedgestone Business Advisors. They're one of the fastest growing business brokerage firms in the country. He was raised in a working-class family in New York. Michael developed a strong sense of grit and resilience early on, qualities that have defined his entrepreneurial journey. His career began with humble roots from working in a pizzeria, where he navigated the world of small business operations before transitioning into business advising, where he quickly found his calling. Today, Michael leads Hedgestone with a sharp focus on client advocacy, strategic deal-making, and long-term value creation. Boasting a team of over 150 advisors and over 700 businesses sold. His ability to relate to business owners from all walks of life, because he's been one, makes him a trusted business broker during the most pivotal moments of their lives. With a combination of street smarts, vision, and relentless execution, Michael has built a national platform that empowers entrepreneurs to exit on their terms and unlock their next chapter. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So this is something I'm really excited to talk about, because buying businesses, especially in the last couple of years, right? That has something that, especially on social media, I've seen a lot of people talk about. It wasn't something that was discussed. It was something that I've kind of noticed almost post-COVID really start to take more of an effect. So before we kind of get into it all, can you just give me the history of, how you got into business brokering? Obviously, we talked about it a little bit in the introduction, but how you got into this business, and we'll go from there.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I got lucky, honestly.
Okay.
I was 21 years old, working in a pizzeria, 7 days a week, 90 hours a week, and I stumbled across a business broker, and I didn't know what that was, honestly. I have no idea. And he's like, "Listen, I sell pizzerias. Why don't you come to my office? You must know about operations."
Did he come into the pizzeria?
Came into the pizzeria. He threw the way I caught attention. He threw down a black card, and I was like,
Okay.
"What is this? What is a black?" I didn't know what a black card was, so it caught my attention. I'm like, "What do you do?" I'm a business broker. I'm down the block. I came into his office. I started delivering more to his office, learning the ins and outs a little bit. He took a liking to me, and from there, I sold a pizzeria while I was working as a pizza boy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Nearby or in the same area?
This was in Oakdale. So I sold the pizzeria in Oakdale.
Okay.
I was working in Melville.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
did it off a drop note. So I tell all my brokers the best way to get listings is putting down drop notes. It's not a mailer, it's a drop note where you physically go and you leave the mail underneath the door physically. It's the
Okay.
best way to get business.
Okay. And so you went and just if you could enlighten me a little
Yeah.
bit, when you met this guy, he owned the business brokerage, or he was a broker?
He owned the business brokerage.
Okay.
He had about 5 to 10 brokers.
Okay.
70 years old, seasoned guy.
Gotcha. And he said, come on, come work for
He's
me.
like, "Come, I love your energy. I love that you want to work."
Okay.
And he took a liking. And that's the biggest thing I think in entrepreneurship is I was a listener, which, I'm not patting myself on the back, but the best people I think are good listeners.
Sure.
And I listened. I didn't talk. I worked on Saturdays. I worked on Sundays, put my head down, went out and met people in Brooklyn, Queens, Westchester, Pennsylvania, whatever it took. And all that hard work created luck.
Sure. Now, did you decide when you got in, okay, I'm working in a pizza shop, I'm just going to target pizzerias? Did you just get into just that area?
I was doing that because it takes, a few months to close a deal. So I was
Sure.
doing that, and I also got my real estate license. I was renting apartments. But, my main focus was the pizzeria business, because that's what I knew.
Okay. And do you remember what the sale of that pizzeria was?
Yes, that was it was around 350,000.
Okay.
For the first, so I sold it the first time for 350. I got 10 points,
Okay.
and I had to obviously give my cut. And then the second time I sold it in 6 months again, the same pizzeria for 500.
Wow. Okay, so now these people that came in and bought it, was their expectation they were going to come in, streamline some things, and just sell it? No.
No, it was just a fluke. It was the guy got lucky. He got the sales up. He wasn't a pizza guy. He's like, but the business is great. And
Okay.
we found another buyer that was interested.
Now that's a lot for a pizzeria, right? I mean, was this a larger than usual pizzeria? Because on
Back then,
back
yes.
then, okay,
Back then, it was a lot for a pizzeria. A pizzeria that sells for 500,000 back then, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was doing like 20 to 25,000 a week.
okay,
It was about 20 times, it was about, yeah, 20 times weekly sales,
wow,
roughly.
okay. Now, typically, I've noticed with business brokerages, they usually go by the whatever the gross profit is, right? It's 3 to 5x EBITDA, right? Like that's typically what is that the same with pizzerias, or is a different metric used?
So typically, businesses trade at a multiple of the EBITDA.
Yeah.
Um, the old school methods were a little different. I learned from that gentleman, and he used to value businesses on a weekly basis of gross sales. Liquor stores were valued off the gross sales. Bagel stores, pizzerias were valued off the gross sales. Now I really teach my advisors and my brokers to value businesses based on the EBITDA because it's all
Okay.
about return on investment, in
Sure.
my opinion.
Okay. All right. Now, what is it about your service, right? Because I've seen like a lot of business brokerages. There's people that I know that have recently become business brokers. What is it about the service that you offer that sets it apart, from other competitors? Because, like I said, this is something that's growing, and
Yeah.
it's getting a lot of traction in the last few years.
That's a great question. The average business broker is 65 years old, antiquated. No offense to anyone, but
Sure.
this is the facts. They don't know how to use AI. They don't know how to innovate. They don't have CRM platforms.
Okay.
They're not industry agnostic. So what makes us different is we're industry agnostic. We sell all different types of businesses, and everything's relative, but we focus on everything. We have a CRM platform that we've built that really just focuses on the brokers selling only. I don't want the brokers sending out paperwork, doing the dog work. We hire VAs. We have platforms. We use AI, which is obviously, if you're not using AI,
Sure.
you're not going to win. And, we're really just innovating. That's the
Gotcha.
difference.
Tell me more about AI, because that's something that, even on my own business, right? I'm realizing we've implemented a few things, but I know we've barely scratched the surface. Tell me more about what you guys are doing on the AI front.
So we're building calculators, which is great. I can't give all my secret sauce, but
That's okay.
I'll give
Yeah,
the
to the basic
you
stuff.
know
That's fine.
calculators, mobile applications, answering people. Uh, there's just so much we're doing. We're doing, like Lindy. I don't know Lindy is a great resource for AI. Abby.
Okay.
We're really deep into it. I actually hired 2 full-time AI engineers.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, and because you think about how fast, right, that industry is growing and developing, and just the things that it's able to do and make people's lives easier. Now, and I always tell people, listen, is it going to replace some jobs? Sure, but the people in my company, I tell them is like, this isn't going to replace you. This is going to make you better.
Yeah.
The best way to get better is to use this, okay, and you'll find that you're going to get, it used to be right, like TV, phone, internet, Google, all those things made your job, you're able to do things 5 times faster, 10 times faster. Same thing goes for AI. It's just another step, in the evolutionary process.
So big. And the biggest thing, which I didn't touch, was the blogging. So, in your business, in a pizzeria, in my business, the goal is to be first on Google.
Yes.
Right? When someone types in want to buy a house or want to buy a business. So, to automate AI to blog for you
Yes.
and keep you at that search engine is huge.
Yes. Well, because essentially now, right, organic search is going to be critical because people aren't going to be searching as much in Google anymore.
Yeah.
Be searching in AI.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's going to be based off of where you rank organically. So, and blogging plays a big role in getting that ranking as high as it can.
100%. I chat GPT'd, which business broker is the best to use, and Hedgestone pops up first.
It does.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Most of the time. I mean, sometimes, Sunbelt, but Hedgestone's only been in business for 2.5 years.
Okay. Okay. So just going back, you worked under the gentleman that you had met through the pizzeria, right? You worked under his brokerage. How long did you stay there?
I stayed there for about 2.5 years.
Okay. Okay.
Learned a lot. I mean, just it was a sponge.
Gotcha. And what year did you start this?
2012.
2012. Okay, so you were there 2.5. So about 2015, you left, and where did you go after that?
2015, I started Empire Business Management.
Okay.
I was the broker of record, and still have a great relationship with that gentleman today. And he respected that I did my own thing. And then I just started Empire. We were a 5 to 10 man team for about 4 years.
Okay.
And then I started developing Hedgestone, which is a
Gotcha.
different type of business. It's not just a business brokerage.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
So Hedgestone is a fintech. So Hedgestone, I built a educational platform in the back. So when people join Hedgestone, they get all my content, my courses, my podcasts,
Gotcha.
my training, my videos on how to get seller leads, which is tremendous.
Okay.
And it's really working very well.
And this is training for other business brokers,
This
right?
is training so when someone joins my company, I get them trained up right away.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you started this when you say around 2019?
I started developing it in 2019 to 2020. It took me 2.5 years to develop.
Okay. And then in 2022,
In 2022, end of 22, I did a soft launch, and then 23, I launched.
you launched. Excellent. Now, along the years, right, from when you started, right, to where you are now, selling businesses on behalf of business owners, you've come across probably a lot of interesting people, good and bad, I would imagine, but
Yeah.
right, but I imagine a lot of good people with some really fascinating stories. Obviously, you have the gentleman that you first met that threw down the black card that got Joel started. But any other owners, sellers of businesses that really had an impact on you that may have helped you get to where you are today?
So many.
Yeah,
Um, I'll tell a story.
sure. Go ahead.
In 2019, I sold a car wash in Elmont called
Okay.
Millennium Car Wash. The owner of that a very minority owner of that car wash, he owns 10 other car washes. He took a liking to me. I got him top dollar for that car wash. And then after that, he was a buyer after I sold him. So in 2022, I introduced him to the 3 biggest car washes in New York, and it was a $23 million deal with the property. And I basically told him, roll my commission into the deal. That's
Okay.
how much our relationship was. That's how good our relationship was. So we rolled the commission into the deal, and from then on, it's just like it's very close friendship. The places make money. The value went up probably almost 100%,
Wow.
and that was a great story. Other stories.
And you're a part owner of that.
I'm part owner in that.
Gotcha. And still a part owner to this
I'm
day.
a part owner in 9 with him, and then I have a 10th one.
Okay.
And I'm a 33% owner.
Oh, wow. Excellent. So it's really helped. I mean, aside from, the money that you've made from, selling businesses, you've had the opportunity to invest back in as well.
Yeah, and car washes are great because they're great tax shelters.
Sure. Okay. Tell me more about tax shelters, right? Because, obviously as a business owner myself, right, the biggest issue that I have is taxes, right? How are you able to help other business owners offset their income buying businesses?
It's a great question. The only thing is, I'm lucky because those guys run the car washes for me. I don't do any work,
Sure.
which is very rare. So if anyone that's looking to get into a business, nothing is 100% absentee,
Of
so I don't
course.
want to mislead anyone. But car washes, gas stations, a couple other types of businesses qualify for bonus depreciation.
Yep. Just like real estate.
Just like real estate. So you can offset that W-2, and you can, take as many losses and depreciation as much as possible. So that's what I do. I take the goodwill and we depreciate the goodwill, and it's a great tax shelter for me because I make a lot of 1099 income.
Now, do you have business people that come, other business owners that say, hey, I need somewhere to park my money, right? I need to park my money somewhere. I've got a big tax bill coming up. Do you see a lot of people using that as a tactic, knowing that nothing's ever 100% absentee, but they're willing to say, hey, I need to diversify. I need to bring some additional income. I need to lower my tax basis, right? What can you find for me that's not gonna, I'm not changing my business strategy, right? I'm not changing what I'm doing, right? But I need to diversify. I need to offset my income. What kind of business can you get me into? Do you see a lot of that?
All the time,
Yes.
every day.
Every day.
So people, like, for an example, I have a car wash property that I'm selling. This guy has to spend his money. If he doesn't spend his money, he's going to pay Uncle Sam.
Yep.
So I got him into a car wash property
Okay.
for $5.5 million.
Is that a common business? I mean, what would you say are the most common businesses that people of who fit that avatar go into?
Car washes, laundromats, gas stations, marinas,
Okay.
hotels. I have a group that I'm very close with that I do a lot of business with. They own about 150 properties and businesses. Sold a bunch of businesses to them. If someone wants to park their money, I would recommend going to them because they're like syndicators of businesses.
Gotcha.
They bought the Riverhead car wash for me. They bought the Mattatuck car wash for me. I sold their Livingston, New Jersey car wash, and now we're just doing a ton of business together.
Okay.
And there's just people like that I would say, if you want to be 100% absentee, go to them. You'll make a little less if you own your own business, but it's safe.
Okay. Interesting. When you're underwriting these deals and you're looking at them, what's the one major deal killer that if now you're obviously representing sellers, right? But then like you said, we also have this avatar of people that are looking to come and say, I want to buy something, right? I need to offset my income. I need to, diversify. What's the one major deal killer? If you see this when analyzing a deal, you're telling that client, no go.
It's a great question, but I would like to say business brokering is a little different from real estate. We don't co-broke. So we have to be in the middle between we got to make everyone 85% happy in a deal.
Gotcha.
Like real estate. One thing that I look at is the cash. There's a lot, 90% of small businesses write off more than what they should, and that's why they don't qualify for SBA loans. So I have to really verify that what they're telling me is what's actually there rather than projections or rather than cash under the mattress. If there is cash under the mattress, it's fine.
Where's the mattress?
We gotta tie it. Yeah, we gotta tie it in.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would make sure ties in as the cash.
Okay. But now you will represent, like you can't co-broke, right? But you'll work with buyers and you will work with sellers, just to clarify that.
We have to,
Yeah.
because if we don't, if everyone's not 85% happy, the deal will never happen.
Okay.
So I have to work with the buyers and I have to work with the sellers, and I'm working in everyone's best interest.
Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask is, what are the characteristics, right? You're working with business owners. What are the characteristics of the people that have the most sellable businesses, right? What do they all kind of have in common? Because like you said, there's a difference between there's profitable businesses, right? But not every profitable business is a sellable business, right? I think that's fair to say, right? Yeah. But the ones that are sellable, right? They all have some common thread, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
What's that common thread?
It's a great question. Most of the businesses that sell have their stuff in order, have their financials in order, can get me a P&L, can get me leases, they're organized.
Mm-hmm.
Another huge thing is transparency. When people tell me what they're going to do and actually do it, those are the owners that sell their businesses. When people tell me that they're making $500,000 a year, and then we waste all this time and do due diligence, they're making $100,000 a year, something else is off too.
Sure.
So the owners, the owners' personalities and the owners' mentality. The owner is the biggest thing in the business. The people. And also, obviously, having the right financials and being transparent.
Would you say systems play a role, right? Because I've seen this, just so I will give you some background, like being an owner of a fix and flip business, that's a profitable business, right? But it's not the most sellable type of business, right? Because a lot of it is dependent on the operator, which,
Correct.
in my case is certainly true. I have a great team. I don't necessarily, I don't feel like I have a job, right? Because they take care of so much and I'm able to enjoy my life and do a lot of great things. But a lot of the stuff that's happened has kind of happened up here, right? Now it works for me, right? But it may not work for the other guy that would want to take my place. So I would imagine that systems and processes that don't depend as much on the owner are probably a big portion of that, right?
100%. in different types of businesses like roofing companies, if it's mostly new construction, like what you're saying, where the jobs just come from the owner, it's much more difficult to sell if it was monthly recurring revenue. If the guy has monthly recurring revenue with contracts in place, that's a much better business to buy because you could depend on the monthly recurring revenue.
Sure.
In the car wash business, membership, right? Membership, rain or shine. If it
Yep. Yep.
rains,
Yep.
the car wash is closed. If it rains, with the other car wash that has the membership, it's open. You're still making money. So the systems and processes is huge. The monthly recurring revenue is really
Hmm.
what it's about in business.
Okay.
Having that recurring money coming in,
Now, obviously, every business owner, right? They want to try to show as little on paper as they possibly can, right?
which
Like,
is a mistake in my
okay,
opinion.
so that's my point, right? They do trying to not pay as much in taxes. So, but there's that, like what you just brought up. What happens in a scenario where they go to sell? They've depreciated whatever they could. They've taken as many deductions as they could. Is there a smart way? Is there a middle ground, so to speak, where you're not paying it out the ass to Uncle Sam, but when it comes time to sell, you can get the proper value for your business?
Yeah, I mean, if you're taking as much cash as possible out and you're depreciating and you're not showing what you're making on the tax returns, you're not going to be able to get a loan. It's just, what kind of SBA is going to underwrite something
Sure.
that they can. So what I push, 95% of my deals are seller financing deals. So 95%.
Now, 100. What do those terms look like?
So it's a little gray area. Every deal is different.
Mm-hmm.
There's no cookie
Of
cutter deal.
course.
So most of my deals, if I were to take a blended average, I would say 30 to 40% down.
Okay.
Um, Depending on the deal size. If it's a $500,000 deal, the note can be 5 years. If it's a $10 million deal, the note has to be 20 to 30 years. So everything is different. We crunch the numbers, we really get into it, but that's how we get deals done, is through seller financing. And us brokers, we still make the 10% commission.
Yes, of course. How do you sell that to the seller, right? Because the fear is like, okay, well, because I've had people approach
Yeah.
me about buying my business, right? But a lot of it's on seller financing. And I'm saying to myself, well, what if this guy can't pay?
So that's a great question. I get that question all the time. Why would I seller finance? I'm going to tell you why. You can defer your capital gains over the course of the note. So you're not paying Uncle Sam one lump sum right now. You're going to make interest on your money.
Mm-hmm.
So that interest adds up. If you have $3 million over 30 years, you're making millions of dollars on top of your price. We're going to open up your buyer pool tremendously. So we're going to get you a higher multiple because there are going to be so many people that are interested in your business.
Sure.
And then the business is the collateral. If they don't pay you, they're going to have a confession of judgment. You're going to get your business back. It might not be in the best place, but then we can resell it. I'll help you resell it.
How quickly could they get their business back if, for instance, somebody stopped paying?
It depends what state. In New York, it can take 6 months. Depends how it really depends. The honest answer, it depends who the buyer is. Could they spend $1 million on a litigation attorney?
Mm-hmm.
It really depends the situation too. Was there reps and warranty in the contract? Like, I protect all my sellers from this stuff. But if you have a tight contract, it could take 3 to 4 months to get it back.
Gotcha. How often are sellers staying in the business, right, to run the day-to-day? Is that something that you see a lot of? Is it 50-50? What's the common thing?
I would say it's probably 25-75 where they stay in and stay there and actually run it. Financing is 95%. I would say mostly the buyer just wants to get in and says buy to the seller because they want to make all the money.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If someone's looking to sell their business, how far in advance should they be planning, right? Before, because like I said, some might be sellable right out of the gate. They come to you and say, Michael, sell my business. Great. But what happens to those who are like just thinking about it? Like, I want to retire in 5 years, but not everything's 100% in order. What do you think is the proper amount of time to prep it to make it truly a sellable business?
It's a great question. 3 to 6 months, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, 3
Okay.
to 6 months with me.
Okay.
Obviously you want to know your numbers. You want to put together an org chart, an organizational chart where, if you're the CEO, who's your manager, who are your key employees. You want to put everyone on the books. You want to show as much as you could on paper. So when we sell it, we can actually prove the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And, 3 to 6 months, if it's a bigger deal, it could be a year.
Okay. Now, is that something if somebody comes to you and says, I want to do this, I want to sell, do you obviously, will you take them under your wing, advise them? Can you just talk to me about how that looks?
Yeah, I would give them an exit prep, consultation
Okay.
where I would go over their books. I would tell them what they have to do. I would help them with their social media, which we
Okay.
didn't even dive
And
into
that's a
that.
courtesy consultation or
Yeah, I
what?
would definitely give them, a little bit of my time. But if
Okay.
it goes more, then obviously time is money,
So what would that look like just for people that are watching that are thinking of selling their business?
If someone really needs me to get their business up and running, obviously I'll spend an hour, 2 hours just for free and give you
Sure.
free advice because, I want to help everyone. But if it exceeds that, then it would be, I don't know. It depends how big your business is. If
Mhm.
it's a $20 million business, there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay.
If it's a $500,000 pizzeria, it's going to be much less.
Okay. But I mean, are you charging by the hour
No, we
or
do a one-time fee broken up into a couple of payments.
payments? Gotcha. Okay. Now, in terms of like for those, because, I've been strictly a real estate person, right? And my thing is, no matter what, like obviously markets could change, right? But, I buy a home, sure, value could go down, but it's not going to go down to zero. I mean, anything's possible, but very, very unlikely, right? What is the risk in terms of, because I've thought about this, right? Should I be buying more real estate or should I be looking into some types of businesses, right? And my fear is always, well, the value of that business could go down to zero. That's not going to happen in real estate, even though the upside is there. What's the counter argument to that?
During recessions and depressions, everyone's going to want to sell. I mean, there's still going to be sharks that are going to be out there, like yourself, that are going to say, you know what, everyone wants to sell right now, but the economy always comes back and I'm going
Sure.
to buy. So no matter what the economic time is, business brokering really is recession proof because there's always going to, when it's a recession, everyone's going to
Mhm.
want to sell. When it's great, everyone's going to want to buy. People are going to want to make money. They're going to want to sell. I don't think, everyone in the restaurant business, everyone needs to eat. Everyone on Long Island is going to want to still wash their cars. It really depends where, but business is not going anywhere.
That I understand. There's certain business I agree are recession proof, right? But there are certain businesses that you could buy, right? Even like service based businesses, a
Sure.
lot of times, right? That could go down to like zero,
Look
right?
at the dry cleaning business during COVID.
Yeah,
No one went back to work. They didn't get their laundry washed. That business took a hit,
it took a hit,
and
big
no
hit.
one knew that.
So as far as like, if somebody like me comes to you, right, it's like I'm thinking about buying a business, but my fear is that the business could go down to zero, right? Like something could happen, right? And I put all this money out, right? Because a lot of times these SBA loans, you're signing a personal guarantee, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
of course.
Yeah.
You're signing your life away.
Yeah, you're signing your life away. So now it's like all of a sudden, like I'm on the hook. This business goes down to zero. With real estate, it's like, okay, well, I've got the asset. If it gets bad, I could always offload it, take a small loss, whatever it is. But I could be on the hook for this entire loan, right?
True.
What is it that you're doing to offset those fears for somebody like myself?
I'm just looking at history. It's always a risk. Business is always a risk.
Sure.
I can't predict the future. In 20 years, is everything going to be electric cars and the oil lubes are going to be gone? Maybe, right? But, if the deal is that good, it's up to you. I don't really push people. If they're a little on the fence, I tell them, then don't do it. I
Yeah.
take it away from them. That's my tactic. But it's a tough question because every business is a little different. If you were to cater to me on the dry cleaning business, I would tell them, look what happened during COVID. But who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I just leave that in their court.
Okay. Long Island residents, do you have a house that you want to potentially sell off market, your terms, your timeline, your way? Or do you know of somebody that could benefit from that? Then definitely give us a call. You can reach out to us at 631-333-SELL. The number is below, or visit our website at SuffolkCountyHouseBuyers.com. And for any deal that you refer over to us where you are not the seller, the first deal you refer to us, we pay a $5,000 referral fee. The second deal, we pay a $10,000 referral fee. And get this, the third deal that you refer to us, we will split the profits with you 50-50. And some of our deals are multiple six figures, so this can be a life-changing amount of money. It could pay for weddings. It could pay for college. anything that you choose from. So please take advantage of this great opportunity. Once again, we're looking for off-market opportunities where a seller wants to sell on their terms, their timeline, their way. Time, obviously, is another issue, right? Business people come to you, they're looking to buy a business. You say nothing's truly 100% absentee. What's the sweet spot? What's the ideal scenario for somebody that already has a thriving business, already a successful career? They want to diversify their income, but they're not looking to, I believe that this wholeheartedly, do what you're good at, right? Go all in on one thing. Once that gets good, start to do other things. So let's say somebody starts to do one of these things and they buy a business. How can they not disrupt their life but still run a profitable business? What's the sweet spot in terms of the time spent managing this?
That's a great question. I feel like personally, when I buy businesses, I bring in people on my side where I empower. Business is all about people, process, products. People is the most important thing. I empower people, whether it's someone on my team or whether it's someone that's working there. Because when you're buying a business, you're inheriting the staff. So how do you get those people to really like you? Give them KPIs, which basically incentivizes them. If they hit certain sales, they get more money, and then that offsets your time. That's how I look at it. Businesses that can be ran semi-absentee, laundromats. The best laundromats are in the worst areas, but they could be run absentee.
Okay.
Express car washes. So car washes with the vacuums outside where the customers vacuum. Those self-service car washes. Even health clubs, they can be ran absentee. I've sold many retro fitnesses. They were absentee businesses. If you go into the restaurant business, there's no way you were running that absentee unless you're like, Gillis Paul, the Paul brothers, where they just have the staff and they empower everybody. But that's how I would answer it.
Okay. What for anybody buying a business, right? For yourself, right? You're buying a business. I mean, do you have a threshold? You say, hey, I don't want to spend more than 2 hours a week. Is there a number that sometimes you'll put on these businesses, right? Because you say nothing's truly 100% absentee,
Yeah.
right? So what is the level of the maximum level of involvement that someone like you would want?
I would say, 5 hours a week.
5 hours a week per business.
Maybe 7 hours a week.
Per
1 hour
business.
a day per business.
Okay.
Maybe less. My model is what I want to do in the future. I'm building Hedgestone. I'm building different verticals with Hedgestone. But my real goal is to start my own private equity company.
Gotcha.
So I have someone in mind that's going to be my boots on the ground guy that I'm pulling out of a job. And he's going to be doing the grunt work. And I'll spend an hour or two,
Okay. But on average, you would say 5 to 7 hours a week per business is
Per business,
fair.
yeah.
Okay. Just to give people, an idea.
Realistically, yeah.
Okay. These days, we touched on it a bit. What are the most attractive businesses to buy? And then contrary, what are the most unattractive businesses to buy?
I think the most attractive businesses to buy, I'm biased towards car washes,
Sure.
laundromats, self-storage.
Okay.
And then home service companies.
Okay.
Like roofing, HVAC, plumbing. We have a dryer vent bit. Like anything with home service is it's a great business to buy because it's not consolidated. Car washes are not consolidated. 1%. All the private equity companies in the country with car washes only own 1% to 2% of the entire market. How crazy is that? There are 77,000 tunnels, and only 2% are owned by the big boys.
Gotcha.
The rest, 98%, are owned by mom and pop. So there's just so much.
But that's going to change, I would imagine, right? Because private equity realizes that,
It's
right?
changed, but it's still so big. There's still so many mom and pop owners. And that goes with roofing. There's a million roofs. There's millions of roofs. There's millions of HVACs. There's so much opportunity out there.
Okay. For those that, if they're a business owner, right, especially the ones that they're running themselves, right, what's the incentive for them to sell? Because like at the end of the day, like somebody's going to come in and say, well, if this is truly absentee, why are you selling it? Just keep taking the money, right?
I mean, people want to retire. There's baby boomers right now that have great businesses, and their kids don't want the businesses, and they're like, I'm tired. I want to go take my wife on my RV to Key West and, live my life. I don't want to sweat. And even though I'm absentee, nothing's truly absentee.
Sure.
So they want to retire. They want an exit plan. And, the best exit plan is to find a strategic buyer to come and give them the highest multiple possible.
Gotcha. Okay. That's fair. In terms of financing, you talked about so much of these are seller finance, right? And you said, let's just say they're putting 30% down. That 30%, that coming in the form of an SBA loan, private investors? What do you see?
So any business owner that's seller financing wants to be first position on their
Sure.
note. So it can't be through an SBA because
Gotcha.
SBA is first position.
Okay.
It has to be from their own money, cash, or it has to be either a HELOC or something where they could take the money out and they're not in a position.
Do you see them raising additional capital in a second lien position for that 30%? Is that something? No.
Mostly all cash.
Okay.
There's so many people with money.
With money. Gotcha. Okay. So they're used 70%. And what's the interest rate on that seller finance?
So from my, deals, I would say between 5.5 to 7.5.
Okay.
So lower than prime.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the rest of it's coming from their own cash.
The rest of it's coming from their own cash. And that's what I like. Everyone says, oh, we're in a recession, this and that. But there's just so much opportunity out there. It's insane.
Yeah. No, there is.
Deals are getting done.
Deals are getting done. There's opportunity. There's income to be made. You know what I mean? And especially for somebody, like me, all right, I have a good business. It works for me, right? But for somebody else, right, that, I often think like, hey, this is something that's been in the back of my mind. I wanted to stop doing real estate, right? Running a fix and flip business is hard. It's
competitive,
hard.
right?
It's competitive. There's a lot of moving parts. I actually say like, and again, I know the grass is always greener, but I'm like, hey, if I could do this with all of the different missing components and how complicated it is, like a run-of-the-mill type business would probably be easier. And so I think to myself, if I didn't have this taking up my time, right, like I would go down that route. But there's also those people out there, right, that like they might have equity in their home. They may have come into a windfall of money, right? But they're like, all right, well, what do I do, right? Like, I can't live off of this money for the rest of my life. They could go to somebody like you. You could find them a business, right, that's not going to take over their lives. Get 70% seller financing, bring the other 30%, and now they've got a business. Their lives aren't impacted, right? They could still live and enjoy their lives, and they're making a living too.
Yeah, and exactly. And also, I'm teaching so many people how to become business brokers because it's such an unsaturated market. There's only right now about 15,000. It was less 2 years ago. Now it's about 15,000.
What was it 2 years ago?
5,000.
Okay, so it's growing fast.
It's growing. So 15,000 business advisors in the country, and there are 2 million active real estate agents. Think about that.
Yeah.
And, I'm bringing in people. Like I had this one guy that came into my company. He was a corrections officer at Rikers Island.
Okay.
Knew nothing about sales, zero. He came into my company. His first year, he made $500,000 because he wanted it. He leveraged his father's connections. He went out there and he just made it happen. And there's just so much opportunity right now in this country.
There's plenty of opportunity. I mean, and what we've talked about here, you have somebody that was a corrections officer, right? Like, didn't have any kind of background, right? Obviously been through, to be a corrections officer at Rikers, right? Like, was it at Rikers?
It was at Rikers.
It was at Rikers. So not an easy place to be.
I've had a few people from Rikers go.
Yeah, but to that point, right? They're used to being in a stressful environment, right? Like if you could, people are, I hate to say this and not to sound callous, but there's a lot of weak people out there, right?
Weak-minded, yeah.
Weak-minded. They can't take the heat. People think that it's a skill issue or a knowledge issue. And the reality is that knowledge, especially now with AI, is useless, right? Now, knowledge isn't worth anything, right? But grit, resilience, right? Fortitude, all those things, those are the separators. And people seem to think, well, I don't know this or I don't know that. You don't need to know that. You need to have what's in here is a lot more important than what's here.
100%. And every deal teaches you something. So don't be, like I tell all my guys, don't be scared. Like, you see how much I know. I'm not trying to pat myself in the back. Don't be scared of what I know. You're going to learn as you go. You're going to learn from every deal. And I would say 90% of my people, they've never done, 95% of my people have never done business broker. I've taught everyone how to do it.
Gotcha. And a lot of the people that are buying businesses, Do a lot of them have business backgrounds?
Some of them I would say 50% own other businesses, 50% are first-time buyers.
First-time
I
buyers.
like working with first-time buyers.
Yeah.
Like, I have a first-time buyer.
Because they at least they don't pretend like they know everything.
They're listeners,
Yeah.
they'll take advice. Like, I have a first-time buyer, bought 4 car washes from me in 2023, 2024. Spent $10 million with me. We're closing on another car wash next week. Um, and he's still, even though he owns 4, 5, still listening, and it's just a first-time buyer. It's
Yeah. If you could, take me through, he owns $10 million worth of car washes. How much is that producing for him on average, if you had to
Well, he
guess?
got great deals, so he bought them way under market. Uh, he's probably got between his 4 locations, I don't know, I would say maybe 10,000 members.
Mm-hmm.
So each member is $25.
Okay.
So he's 10,000 times $25 is
Okay.
it's a good number, and then 50% expenses.
Yeah. Okay. So he's making and he's not killing himself in the process either. I mean, he's involved, but
He's involved, but the customers for this type of car wash, the customers are doing all the work.
yeah.
That's why he's making 50%.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. Now, do you think when we talk about you working with first-time buyers, do you think most people it should be a one and done thing? Hey, you come to me, you buy a business, you have your living, you're done, or do you see this as an opportunity for other business owners that they start with one? Should they scale beyond that, or should they, for most people, stick with one?
They should scale. I mean,
Okay.
it depends on the person. Like that person that has to live and just wants to relax, that they're good for one business.
Yeah.
But someone like me and you that we want to grow, we want to build a billion-dollar empire. I'm gonna be hitting you. Like I have this one guy. This is a great story. I sold him a supermarket for 3.5 million in 2021.
Okay.
Right now, right this second, we're closing on a $5 million deal. And the reason why we're closing on the deal is because I'm his annoying friend. I'm not I told him, he knows I'm not a broker to him. I'm like, dude, you're buying this supermarket. It's going to make your net worth X amount more. So he's like, I don't know. I just had a baby. I don't know. I'm like, listen, I'm going to get you a better deal. So I'm that type of guy that wants people to scale, and you can't act desperate though. If they really don't want it, then it is what it is. But you got to just keep, when you're at a point where you're not desperate in sales, it's the biggest thing.
Gotcha. All right. So talk to me about the process of somebody comes to you, they want to buy a business, for instance, right? Just walk me through what that process is. They sit down and say, Mike, okay, you know what? I gotta do something, right? I've come into some money, or I need to offset my active income, whatever it is. Just walk me through that process of when they sit down, how that looks, and then ultimately once they close the sale.
So they sit down with me and I ask them, first of all, what do you do right now? It's an interview. I give them an interview. It's not them asking me. I always switch it on them. What do you do right now? What business are you in? I want to know what they do. I want to know their past history. I want to know things about them. So I understand who they are, what they do. I really get to how much money they have right now in their pocket rather than going out and saying they're approved for a $5 million SBA loan. I need to know how much money they have in their pocket. I'm going to find out indirectly.
Gotcha.
I'm going to find out what kind of businesses they want. What kind of lifestyle do they want? Do they want to spend every day at a business, or are they willing to go to a business, a couple times a week, 3 times a week? What kind of business do they want? I want to make sure that I'm getting all the information because I'm going to keep them to their word. If you're going to, my time is money. If you want me to go on a hunt for you, you got to be ready to pull the trigger. So once I get all that information, I put the best opportunities in front of them.
Are they on market opportunities? A lot of times
Everything I do is off market.
Everything's off
Everything.
market. Okay.
Because it's business. You can't give addresses. It's people's livelihood.
Gotcha.
So they sign NDAs with me. I bring them in as a customer to the business. They like it. I make sure they like it. Then I'll set up an appointment with the owner, and they sit down. They go over their histories. They go over the business. If it's a good fit, they're going to put an LOI in.
Okay.
Once the LOI is in, obviously I've done my due diligence on how much money they have.
But now it's time for due diligence on
the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get the owner comfortable with them. I'm gonna get them I'm gonna try, if it's a cash business, to get them in the business.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
which is hard.
Now, what happens? Like, obviously, you can't double end it, but you're working with the buyer. This is off market. How does that work?
So it's off market, but it's my exclusive.
Okay.
So everything I do is exclusive. So I don't do any open agreements.
Okay.
It's never a handshake. I've got screwed too many times.
Sure.
It's sign. No matter if you find your own buyer, your brother wants to buy it, you still owe me my 10% commission.
Okay.
And once I have that, I just put them together. I step away, but I'm still involved.
Okay.
I don't really step away. I try to make sure everything, I'm always involved.
But you're being paid by the seller.
By the seller.
Okay. But in essence, so you are handling both sides, right?
The buyer's putting the money up. So technically, the buyer is giving the money, but it comes out of the sale price.
Yeah, of course, like it is with a sale of a home.
So I have to handle both sides, and I have to be hands-on. I don't really step away. Some people just step away and let them do their own due diligence.
Yeah.
But I kind of get in there a little bit.
So with that due diligence, what does that look like, right? Because obviously you want to be building ongoing relationships. You want these people to buy more businesses. It's got to be a good fit. It's got to be a good outcome for them. How are you making sure that, this buyer's getting into something that he's going to be happy he actually bought?
I just put myself, the way I perceive that is I put myself in the buyer's shoes. I tell the seller, we're going to get to the bottom of what you're making. And if it's off, then, the price is going to be changed.
Sure.
But if it's on, we're going to get your price. And then with the buyer, I tell him, I'm going to put myself in your shoes. I'm going to get you into the business. I'm going to get you everything you need until you tell me that you're ready. Once you tell me you're ready, your deposit will go hard.
Okay.
And I keep them to their word. I'm very honest with people. That's the biggest thing is honesty.
Once the deposit now goes hard, at this point, how long between when it goes hard to when they close, and what happens in between?
So when the deposit goes hard, it can take 30, 60 days, depending on how big the deal is. What happens in between is the buyer just gets more acquainted with the business and he learns the operation side.
Okay. And then once the deal is closed, you said most of the sellers, especially if they're doing seller financing, they're out, right? Is there a period of time that the sellers just stay on to just kind of help them transition?
Yes, there are sellers that will want to stay on. It's their legacy. It's their
Sure.
baby. They want to stay on until the buyer is good.
What is that? How much time on average?
30 to 60 days.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a little bit longer, but okay.
Some people do stay on for 6 months, a year, but they're going to want to get paid.
Sure.
30, 60 days is free.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So beyond that, then there's potentially an agreement with the buyer that the seller will get paid for their time.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that pretty much sums it up. All right. Well, that's all the questions that I have at this point today. I think what you've talked about, the amount of opportunities that are out there are immense. I think, again, it's like anything else. My success has been always aligning myself with the right people, right? In real estate, I've aligned myself with the right lenders, the right private money people, the right contractors, the right realtors, right? Like the success I've had has been a byproduct of a great team, right? And so what you're offering to the people that are looking to buy a business is a great team, right?
That's everything.
And it's not, I think for those who are watching this and are thinking about buying a business, even though the concept seems foreign, and it might be, at the end of the day, if you've got the right people and you've got the right mindset, there's no reason why they can't take advantage of the tremendous opportunities that are out there.
If everyone's on the same page, has the same passion, the team is there. If you surround yourself with the right people, the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm learning through my journey.
Exactly. And again, it's about doing things, if you do the right thing on behalf of people, everything continues to grow.
It's going to come back tenfold.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Michael, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
on
for
this
having
show.
me.
I appreciate all your insight. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
You can follow me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Business Broker King.
Business Broker King. Okay.
Yes.
And is best ways to message you through Instagram?
Through Instagram. I have a whole team that handles it.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right.